All right. Couple updates for you. First, I'll start with the situation in Gaza. The World Health Organization said today it has led 2 life-saving missions to transfer 32 critical patients, including 2 children, from Nasser Medical Complex in southern Gaza on the 18th and 19th of February. That was yesterday and the day before. This is, of course, amid ongoing hostilities and access restrictions. The high-risk missions were conducted in close partnership with the Palestinian Red Crescent Society and the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The team also provided limited supplies of essential medicines and food for the remaining patients and staff who are otherwise being cut off from aid. 4 Palestine Red Crescent ambulances ensured the safe transportation of the patients who underwent medical assessment and triage under the coordination of the hospital director. Nasser Hospital has no electricity or running water, and medical waste and garbage are creating a breeding ground for diseases. WHO staff said the destruction around the hospital was, quote, indescribable. The area was surrounded by burnt and destroyed buildings and heavy layers of debris with no stretch of intact road. An estimated 130 sick and injured patients and at least 15 doctors and nurses remain inside the hospital. WHO fears for the safety and well-being of the patients and health workers who are remaining in the hospital. And the agency also warns that further disruptions to life-saving care for the sick and injured would lead to more deaths. And in a statement issued today, the World Food Program said it's pausing its deliveries of food aid to the northern Gaza Strip until conditions are in place to allow the safe distribution of that aid. The decision to pause deliveries to the north has not been taken lightly. As we know, it means that the situation there will deteriorate further and more people risk of dying of hunger. The World Food Program is deeply committed, they tell us, to urgently reaching desperate people across Gaza, but the safety and security to deliver critical food aid and for the people receiving it must be ensured. Meanwhile, the humanitarian coordinator for the occupied Palestinian territory, Jamie McGoldrick, has wrapped up a visit to Gaza. Today, he visited the Karim Shalom crossing and the Rafah crossings and saw firsthand the challenges there to getting more humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. Yesterday, the World Health Organization, along with UNICEF and the World Food Program, issued the results of a new analysis that shows a steep rise in malnutrition among children and pregnant and breastfeeding women in the Gaza Strip. The report, entitled Nutrition, Vulnerability, and Situation Analysis in Gaza, finds the situation is particularly extreme in the northern Gaza Strip, which has been almost completely cut off from aid for weeks. Nutrition screenings conducted at shelters and health centers in the north found 15.6%, or 1 in 6 children under the age of 2 are acutely malnourished. Of these, almost 3% suffer from severe wasting, which is the most severe form of malnutrition. Turning to travel, the Deputy Secretary General is in Bangkok. Amina Mohammed, alongside Parnpree Bahida Nukara, the Thai Foreign Minister, as well as the Executive Secretary of ESCAP, that's the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, and that's Armida Salsia, Alice Jabana. They, 3 of them opened the Asia-Pacific Regional Forum for Sustainable Development. In her remarks, the Deputy Secretary General stressed the need to continue to strive towards the achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals and fulfilling the vision of the 2030 Agenda. She highlighted that the Asia-Pacific region has demonstrated how a long-term vision can be transformed into reality, adding that more progress is possible if we mobilize at a speed and scale and if we work together. The Deputy Secretary General then met with the Prime Minister of Thailand, Srettha Thavisin. They discussed Thailand's commitment to accelerating SDG implementation, including targeted actions towards the triple planetary crisis. She underscored the UN's commitment to supporting the government in these efforts. And on sidelines to the event, Ms. Mohammed also met with Wood Chong-um, the Managing Director General of the Asia Development Bank, to discuss actions related to the delivery of the SDG stimulus and reform of the international financial architecture. She is now on her way to Brazil to participate on behalf of the Secretary General in the G20 foreign ministers meeting. The emergency relief coordinator for these United Nations, Martin Griffiths, today released $100 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund, known as CERF, to support 7 of the least funded humanitarian operations in Africa, the Americas, and the Middle East. These emergencies are in Sudan, in Syria, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They received $20 million each, with the remaining support going to Chad, Niger, Lebanon, and Honduras. Mr. Griffiths said the new allocation is a reminder of the crucial fund, the Emergency Response Fund, play the crucial role, at a time of immense needs and chronic underfunding of humanitarian appeals. Last year, less than 40% of the $15.6 billion needed to sustain humanitarian appeals around the globe was received. The emergency fund also received less funding in 2023, which was the lowest in the last 5 years. With donations at the lowest, CERF's life-saving impact is facing serious challenges. Mr. Griffiths is appealing to member states to step up and provide full funding. And just to update you on one of these crises, and that's Sudan, our colleagues from the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and the World Health Organization say that efforts to deliver life-saving health assistance to civilians across the country are continuing, despite the many obstacles that they face. Last month, our humanitarian partners provided medical consultations to more than 180,000 people in 12 of Sudan's states. They also delivered medicine to 115,000 people in 8 states and supported 16 mobile clinics in Darfur and Kordofan. The humanitarian coordinator for the country, Clementine Nkweta Salame, stressed that the unimpeded rapid passage of aid personnel, medicines, and other supplies must be ensured to support an estimated 25 million men, women, and children in need of desperate humanitarian assistance in Sudan. Turning to the Sahel, the World Food Programme today called for urgent support to safeguard the programs that help communities impacted by various crises in the region. In 2018, WFP had been working with governments and partners on resilience programs in the Sahel. That includes Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger, helping communities access locally grown and nutritious food. Thanks to sustained donor funding, more than 290,000 hectares of degraded land have been restored and 4 million people have benefited, and that's in over 33,200 villages across the Sahel. However, the Rome-based agency warns that the programs are at imminent risk of being suspended due to a lack of funding. From March onwards, WFP will be forced to reduce or stop resilience activities across the Sahel, and particularly Niger. To sustain its resilience building support across the region, WFP requires $183.1 million for the next 12 months. And moving to Ukraine, our colleagues at the UN Refugee Agency said that after 2 years of full-scale war in Ukraine, amidst massive destruction and ongoing shelling and missile attacks across the country, the future for millions who have been displaced remains shrouded in uncertainty. According to UNHCR, there are currently almost 6.5 million refugees from Ukraine who have sought refuge globally, while some 3.7 million people remain forcibly displaced inside their own country. A recent UNHCR study shows that the majority of Ukrainian refugees and internally displaced people, that's 65 and 72% respectively, still express a desire to return home one day. However, the proportion has declined, with more expressing uncertainty due to the ongoing war. And in that regard, I just want to flag that on Friday's Security Council meeting on Ukraine, the Secretary General will be delivering remarks. Moving across the globe to Papua New Guinea, our UN team there has strongly condemned the killing of over 53 million, let's try it again. Our team in Papua New Guinea has strongly condemned the killing of over 53 people in the highland provinces of Enga in Papua New Guinea, and calls for an immediate cessation of violence and warns against possible retaliation following the killings. Richard Howard, the resident coordinator, urged all parties to immediately cease all fighting and called on authorities to fully investigate the killings with a view to bringing the perpetrators to justice. Our team on the ground stands ready to support the government in addressing long-standing issues with a never-increasing illicit flow of arms, and remains committed to assisting the government in limiting tribal violence and bringing lasting peace to the highlands. We have a new resident coordinator to announce for, not that you would know, for Nigeria. Very important job. The UN, our Secretary General has appointed Mr. Mohamed Malik Fall of Senegal as the resident coordinator in Nigeria, following confirmation by the host government. He took his post up over the weekend and will also serve as the humanitarian coordinator for Nigeria. With more than 20 years of experience in development and humanitarian and peace-building affairs, Mr. Fall will lead the work of our UN team on the ground, boosting Nigeria's commitments to advance the sustainable development goals and to leave no one behind. We congratulate him on that post. Today is a day to mark something that we are lacking: social justice. Yep. The World Day for Social Justice. This day reminds us of the needs to build fair and more equitable societies. The International Labor Organization will mark the occasion with a series of events to discuss how to put social justice at the center of international, national, and regional policy agendas. Benno Schwinghammer.
I fight with the microphone. Okay, you saw the Security Council and you saw that the United States blocked a ceasefire call. What's your reaction?
Well, I mean, it's not the first time we've seen a veto in the Security Council. I think our message and the Secretary's message has been to repeatedly call for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. The Secretary General continues to hope that the Security Council will find a way to speak with one voice on this issue. But I think it is also important to remember that there have been a number of resolutions that have passed since October 7th. And it is important that Council members and the international community continue their efforts to move for the implementation of the existing resolutions, notably 2172 and 2720.
Okay, and the Israeli ambassador called UNRWA in his speech a terrorist organization. I guess you might want to dispute that.
UNRWA remains and is the backbone of the humanitarian work that is being done in Gaza at great cost to UNRWA staff themselves. It remains the backbone of not only humanitarian, but development, socioeconomic, and educational work for Palestine refugees in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, and the occupied West Bank. We again call on donors to support the critical work that UNRWA does. Ibtisam, and then Abdelhamid, then Deji, and then Dennis.
Thank you, Steph. A follow-up first on the UNRWA question. Does this worry you that such a statement by the Israeli ambassador could put the life of many UNRWA workers in danger?
Yeah, I mean, these sort of incendiary statements are not helpful to the humanitarian work that we're trying to do in Gaza and in other parts of the Middle East.
And on the American veto, this is actually the fourth American veto, if we take into consideration the veto on the amendment for the December resolution. Do you believe that the U.S., in this case, and other countries in other cases, is misusing its veto power? Thank you.
We know every time a permanent member of the Security Council vetoes, they now have to go and explain themselves, in a sense, in front of the General Assembly. This will happen. This will happen again. The veto is the five countries that hold the veto have a great amount of responsibility, and I think there needs to be explanation on how that veto is used. Abdelhamid.
Thank you. Hussam Abu Safiya, the director of Kamal Udwan Hospital in Gaza, said the following: we are receiving children, we are receiving malnourished children and they are dying in front of us. Famine is becoming a major reason for death of children. How could the SG react to such a statement? Can he really
Well, I mean,
go
how
into-
we're reacting to such statements. I mean, look at what the UN system is trying to do in the face of overwhelming odds, right? We just had a team that went into the middle of a conflict zone to the Nasser hospital to rescue patients. We have tried our best to deliver food and supplies to those who need it the most. I mean, our colleagues at the World Food Program and UNICEF and WHO have just issued a report on the risk of the growing risks and suffering and hunger, especially in the north. So I think on one hand, we're operationally doing whatever we can. And then on the other hand, we're continuing to advocate for the people who are suffering to ensure that policymakers and those member states that have the resources are aware of the dire needs of the people in Gaza. Deji.
Yeah, though we know that this is not the first time a Security Council draft resolution has been vetoed, but the 4 times that U.S. vetoed the resolution, they are about one thing: ceasefire, which the Secretary General called for. In this condition, what else do you think the Secretary General could do to really push for his goal?
The Secretary General is continuing to advocate and push, as you say, for his goal in his meetings with policymakers that he has behind closed doors and very much in public, and his team on the ground is continuing to advocate for the same thing.
And today, during his speech, Israeli ambassador then talked a lot about why the ceasefire is not necessary. Indeed, he said it will let Hamas to leave and come back, and there's no good for a ceasefire. He kind of forgot Palestinian people. I mean, does the UN communicate with the Israeli mission about the ceasefire? I think you guys.
Listen, we have. I mean, every representative that speaks in front of the Security Council knows what they're saying. They're putting forward their national position. The Secretary General and his representative in the Secretariat, when they brief the Council, whether it's Tor Venesland, whether it's Sigrid Kaag, whether it's Martin Griffiths or anyone else, put forward the facts as we are witnessing them. Member states will take that information and will do whatever they want with it.
Which means the UN did convey to the Israeli part
I mean,
that,
it's not
that
a matter of us having.
important
I mean,
to save
listen,
civilian lives.
Deji.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's fine.
Deji. It is not ours. Whether it's the U.S., whether it's the Israelis, whether it's the mission, whether it's a representative of Palestine or any other country, they all have the facts, right? They don't need. They have the facts and they're saying what they want to say.
Okay.
Dennis.
Last week, updated Ukraine recovery and reconstruction needs assessment report was released. So I wonder, were there any similar reports prepared when U.S. convened its military operations in Afghanistan, Syria, or Iraq?
When?
When U.S. convened military operations in Afghanistan, Syria, or Iraq?
Well, there've been these reports are done at the request of the governments. There has been plenty of data and reports done on the needs for reconstruction in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and in Syria, though I have to check about Syria. But I know in terms of reconstruction needs after conflict, they've been done for other countries.
And for this as well? For Afghanistan and Iraq as well?
No, for Afghanistan and Iraq as well, yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Ephraim, and then Stefano, and then we'll come back to the room.
Thank you, Steph. There are increasing concerns we're hearing from Washington, D.C. that the Congress is headed towards permanently stopping or halting the funding for UNRWA. Is this a concern for the Secretary General as well?
Of course, it's a concern. And the United States was a major, if not the major funder for UNRWA. We very much hope that countries that have the resources that may not have given to UNRWA as generously in the past will make up the difference. As you know, similar to my answer to Deji, I mean, member states will take the decisions that they take for the reasons that they feel they need to take them. There is money in the world, and there is enough money to fund UNRWA's operations. Currently, I mean, I was speaking to an UNRWA colleague just an hour ago. I mean, they will, you know, they will meet their salary and operational needs for February. March is much more complicated at this point. So we need those countries that have the resources to give in solidarity and to give to help the people that need it.
We're also seeing the U.S. Pressing for other agencies to do the job of UNRWA, including the WFP and UNICEF. And what does the Secretary General think of those calls?
The Secretary, the Secretary General, I think, was much more eloquent than I could ever be in answering that question at his press conference. There is no alternative to UNRWA, given its size, given the number of local staff that it employs that cannot be replaced. UNRWA is, other agencies, WFP, UNICEF, cannot step in, or WHO, and step in and do the work that UNRWA does. Stefano, then Mr. Schwinghammer.
Thank you, Stefan. Yeah, it's a follow-up on UNRWA. Actually, there is an article by Colin Lynch that came out today on the DEVEX website that says that there is basically a clash between the United States and the Secretary General about UNRWA because apparently UN chief presses relief agency to rebuff American appeals to take over tasks from the Palestinian Refugee Agency. Basically, apparently from this article...
Stefano, I've read the article. I've read the article.
So
You've read the article.
Reaction?
What is the question?
The reaction. Is it true? What's happening?
I think Mr. Lynch, like most journalists, sees different statements and gets different information and facts, and then does his analysis and puts something together. I mean, what is clear, and I think I just literally said it 34 seconds ago to Ephraim, there is no getting around UNRWA, right? No agency can come in and take over the role that UNRWA does. The Secretary General here a few days ago said it in very stark terms as well, that the other agencies do not have the capacity to come in and take over that role. Benno.
Yeah, but well, I didn't finish. I'm sorry. Another question is on the Navalny issue. Of course, there have been already several questions, but because still the body of Navalny was not shown to his mother, and there is a lot going on this. Does the Secretary General has any message for the Russian government about this issue on not showing the?
Well, I mean, I think I answered that question yesterday, where we thought it would, and I said, please, I can't be expected to remember what I said the day before. But what I believe I said yesterday is that it was important that the body of Mr. Navalny be returned to his family, and that states have particular responsibility towards people it incarcerates.
And the last things on related to this question is in Belarus, a political prisoner here, Lednik, has died in custody. Any comment on that?
I have to see that report. I have not seen that. Benno, then Abdelhamid.
Thank you. Another report is that the Russian President Putin sent Kim Jong-un of North Korea a luxury car, like a full-sized luxury sedan, and says, "Are you okay with that?" I mean, like there are
Am
sanctions
I
in
okay
place.
with that? I have no way. I don't want to make light of it. I have no way to judge the veracity of those reports. I don't have any comment.
But I mean, like there are sanctions and luxury cars are.
I literally have no comment. As much as I like luxury cars. Abdel Hamid.
Thank you. As you just said, WFP is suspending its operation for security reasons,
Yeah.
and UNRWA is being underfunded. Would those developments make it much harder for people to survive in Gaza?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. It's only Tuesday. Yes. Sorry to tell you. Sorry to give you some breaking news.